So, I'm a 23-year-old female-to-male dude. At the time of this story, I was probably 16, 17, just started hormone replacement therapy. So I still looked like a teenage girl, but queer? I don't know. Anyway, I was dressed up for Halloween at work. I worked till 9 p.m. that night. Busy, local pizza shop. I was cashiering and making salads all night, serving up smiles, if you will. Costume entailed black jeans, company shirt, boots, and black eyeliner with some glitter on my cheeks. Literally nothing big. Well, once I reconcile my drawer, make sure my crew is okay with me leaving them, I head out and do my usual walk home. It's a 2-mile walk, nothing huge on busy streets. I had my earbuds in, but also made sure I was being observational. Well, glad I was, because halfway through my walk, I spot 2 middle-aged dudes carrying a cooler come out of the bushes, it seems, and head my way. I'm on edge, but try to rationalize. Maybe they live in the complexes across the street from me. Maybe they have a similar route to mine. Probably just 2 homeless guys trying to find their way. Anything to calm my nerves. Well, as I'm getting closer to my house, I have to cross the street at an intersection. I catch a glimpse and see them follow me as I cross, all in my peripheral vision, and they're moving faster. The street lights are becoming further and fewer between. I can feel my heart in my neck. I coughed into my elbow to see the 2 men, not even 10 feet behind me, walking quicker and rolling that damn cooler along, watching me intently. I pulled out my phone and called my mom, seeing my apartments but knowing I may need an intervention sooner than later. "Hey, sweetie." 2 men following me. I'm coming up towards the house. Please, meet up the street. I'm by Princeton Pines. Hurry, please. They're close. I'm on my way. The phone was tucked back into my pocket as I fast walked towards my house, and I saw my mother's figure appear out of our driveway and started waving me down. I heard hurried footsteps run away from me as she came jogging to me. I looked behind me, and the men were bolting up the street and down a side road. My mother saved me in that moment, and she witnessed them too. She was so angry I was followed home. To those 2 randos, let's never meet again. I don't know what you had planned, but I'm glad I never found out. This is a story that pops back up in my mind from time to time. I've only told it to a few people, but I definitely feel like it deserves its place in here. It's for sure one of the scariest moments I've ever had as a child. Back when I was around 10 years old, my mom finally decided that it was time for her to start taking her driver's license course. When she began taking lessons, she was struggling a lot. For that reason, my dad decided that he wanted to do some practice with her, besides the official driving lessons with her instructor, just to make sure that she'd pass the upcoming test first try. My little brother and I were attending swimming lessons at this nearby university at the time. Behind a forested area near the university lays this huge student parking area, surrounded by trees, which turned out to be basically empty every weekend. My dad saw the opportunity to take my mom here to drive around for a bit, and brought my little brother and I with them, since we were too young to stay home alone. We brought a football with us. When we arrived at the parking lot later on in the evening, my parents began their practice. My little brother and I quickly got bored, though, and asked if we could go over to this little grass field on the side of the parking lot to play some football. My parents let us, since they'd always be able to keep their eyes on us whilst driving around. After playing for some time, my parents ended up driving around in the other end of the parking lot. They were approximately 300 to 400 meters away from my brother and I. Suddenly, this white Toyota pulls into the parking lot. We were playing almost right at the exit/entrance. The car turns around and stops on my right side with the vehicle facing the exit. The driver rolls down his windows and presents himself as Thomas. He looked friendly, was good-looking and young. I guess would be around 30. This is where things started to get weird. On the passenger seat was a woman, covering her face with a newspaper. All I could see was long blonde hair, and on the back seat was a baby, sat in a baby chair. Thomas immediately states that he's from the police, and that we have to get in the car immediately, as he has to talk to us. My brother actually took 2 steps towards the vehicle, but I stuck my arm in front of his chest, as I was sensing something was off. The woman was still covering her face at this point, not saying a word. Thomas then raised his voice and told us once again to get in the car, or else he'd have to come out and get us. My brother and I froze out of fear. Suddenly, the woman put down the newspaper, showed her face, and told us in the most calm, motherly voice to just listen to the man. The woman looked young, pretty, and like a person who wouldn't hurt a fly. At this moment, I began screaming as loud as I could. What we hadn't seen at that point was that my dad was already running as fast as he could towards us. He was coming from behind the vehicle, so we didn't see it. My parents didn't have time to drive to us, since the road down the parking lot was twisted all the way. When my dad heard my scream, he started yelling as loud as he could. "Hey, who are you people? Get away from my children!" As soon as Thomas heard my dad and realized my brother and I weren't alone, he threw his car into gear and took off as fast as he could. He most definitely looked like a person who shat himself when he saw my dad. My dad was furious and told my brother and I to hurry up back to the car. He didn't even think about calling the police at that point. He wanted to beat up the guy himself. That resulted in us driving around for the next hour trying to find him, before my dad cooled down and decided that he should probably just call the police. We never found out who these people were, but this episode taught me to never judge a book by its cover. People can be the most friendly-looking individuals in the world and still wish evil upon you or the ones you love. I'm not sure what these people would have done to us. I am sure about one thing, though. They definitely weren't from the police. Hello, I'm Kai and I'm a 34-year-old female. For context, at the time of this story, I had vibrant red hair and sapphire blue eyes. Think Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I was married to my high school sweetheart Colby in 2015 at the age of 25. I'm a very petite woman, and I've always looked considerably younger than my age. So, when I was 25, I looked more like I was around 15 or 16. Colby and I were married in October, and moved into a house in Colby's town, by the local park that we rented from his grandparents in November. This story is just one of the few that happened while we lived there. The town was incredibly small, but expensive to live in. At the time, I was getting my writing career up and going, so I didn't have a job outside of the house. Colby, on the other hand, worked late hours at a call center for one of the major cell phone providers at the time. I was home by myself a lot at that time, so I had a habit of taking walks downtown to one of the restaurants in the area for lunch. The Dollar General or my library to spend a few hours of free time. On one of these such occasions, I'd gone down to the dollar store to pick up a pregnancy test and was on my way back home. As you could probably imagine, I was a bit nervous, as Colby and I hadn't been married all that long, and my mind was preoccupied with thoughts of how I was going to tell him if I did turn out to be pregnant. I had just passed by one of the small mom-and-pop shops that lined the sidewalk, when a man comes out of the shop and starts to follow me. At first, I thought nothing of it. The sidewalk is free, right? Well, then he starts to try to talk to me. His walking speed increases to where he's directly behind me now. Okay, now he has my full attention. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to his clothing, other than to notice it was ratty and unkempt. Keep in mind that I was doing my best not to make eye contact with this guy, as I had noticed him look me up and down from the second he stepped out of that shop. He begins to tell me how beautiful I am. My heart stops. There is no one on this sidewalk at this time of day. My eyes dart as I start to walk as fast as I can. All the while, he's following close behind me, saying stuff to me in a quiet voice. Just when he's about to catch up to me, I see my library come into view. I bolt. I run up the steps and catch sight of him darting into the alley next to the library as I dash inside. Once inside the library, I go straight to the bathroom and lose it. I sob. I wash my face. I know. I probably should have alerted someone, but I just wanted to get home. After a few moments, I leave the bathroom. I find a book that I end up checking out and leave. I didn't see him as I exited the library, so I just book it the rest of the way home. Luckily, our house was only like 2 minutes away from the library. I get home and immediately lock the door before just collapsing on the couch and start crying again. On a positive note, I did turn out to be pregnant. I have a beautiful little boy now that I think I'm going to go play Mario Kart with to take the edge off of reliving this story. So, creepy sidewalk guy from Virginia. No, I do not want you to walk me home. I don't want to hear any more of how beautiful you think I am. Just go back to your alley and stay there. Preferably forever. A bunch of years ago, I matched with a guy on Tinder. I was a freshman in college, just got out of a relationship and having fun. I matched with this guy, male, 24. We can call him D. He was a little odd, but we had similar interests, went to the same school, so I thought, why not? The red flags started rolling in immediately when I said I would go on a date with him. Of course, the fact that he was much older isn't lost on me as the initial red flag. At this time, I didn't have a car. D offers to pick me up, but tells me that he's not in town, but he would leave his grandmother's funeral early, which was at a minimum 5 hours away, to come and pick me up. He showed up in sweatpants, a wife beater, and flip-flops, which struck me as odd because he said he was coming from a funeral. We hadn't made plans, just to get a bite to eat and hang out. Since he had been out of town, he asked if it was okay if we stopped to pick up his dog. He left the dog with a friend. I like dogs, so I said there was no problem. It's dark and we pull up to an apartment complex, and he leaves me in the car and comes back with a golden retriever. The dog immediately starts growling at me, which had never happened to me before, so I start feeling a little weird. D doesn't say anything about the dog's temperament. Because we have the dog, he wants to drop him off at his house. This feels logical to me, so I agree. When we pull up to D's house, he asks if I want to come in. Not wanting to sit stuck in the car, I do. The moment I walked in, I immediately knew it was the wrong choice. The house is trashed. There's garbage everywhere. Trash bags full along the front entry, bottles and wrappers on the couch, just general crap everywhere. D lets me know he has a roommate, but that roommate isn't home. I assume this is to imply the mess isn't his. After brushing the trash off the couch, he asked me if I want to sit and play chess. I had expressed that I was interested in learning, and he seemed more than happy to help me learn. This, too, was a mistake. D begins explaining the game to me, and it isn't fun first date explaining. He has gotten very serious, and is showing me each piece while telling me what it is, what it does, and how it moves. D then begins questioning me over each piece, which most I get wrong. Every time I get one wrong, he yells at me the correct answer and tells me try again. He got more and more frustrated, and it made me very uncomfortable, so I suggested we pause chess and do something else. Dee suggests watching a movie, which is fine with me. The idea of us leaving and going to get food seemingly forgotten. Dee tells me that we can watch the movie in his room, and I oblige. But then he explains that he has to put clean sheets on the bed. I had assumed we were moving to his bedroom because it might have been cleaner. But when we go in, it's not. And there is no TV in his room. He proceeds to put Iron Man 2 onto his phone to have us watch. We watched about 10 minutes of it before things got sexual. I won't tell you strangers the details, but short story short, we didn't have sex, but other things went down. I will say those things were consensual. After they occurred, I was beginning to feel really odd about the whole situation, and told him I didn't want to have sex. Dee was confused, but didn't push it at first. He said fine, and we watched maybe 5 more minutes of the movie before he said he didn't want to watch the movie anymore. He started complaining and asking me why I didn't want to have sex with him. I simply said I wasn't in the mood anymore. He then began pressuring me to tell him exactly what it was about him that made me feel that way. At this point, we had moved from the bedroom back into the dirty living room. You might be thinking, seems like a perfect time to leave, and I thought so too. But this is where things start to get scary. As if he knows I'm thinking about how I'm leaving, he explodes and begins to scream at me. Understand now, this is a 6-foot-tall something man screaming in the face of a 5-foot-nothing young girl. Of course I'm internally freaking out, but I'm trying to make sure I don't piss him off anymore, but also not agreeing to anything. For the next 5 to 10 minutes, Dee screams at me about why I don't like him, why I don't want him, and continually asks what's wrong with him and to tell him. I tried to placate him as best as possible, saying the old "it's not you, it's me" and "no, I don't want to leave." Again, this man is my only ride home, and I'm truthfully not sure exactly where I was. Though I did have my phone and Google Maps, I did not have Uber at the time. Dee finally calms down when he believes I'm going to stay, then suggests we try playing some video game. I was in full internal freakout mode, trying to make sure I was playing the part of the interested date, because I was terrified that if he felt I wanted to leave, he would freak out again. We play this game for a while, then out of nowhere, Dee starts getting upset again. He starts yelling about why no one likes him, why no one wants to get to know him, and why no one loves him, saying that he has never had a girlfriend, and all his dates have been one-night stands. Again, I placate him with a, "I don't know, lots of girls are just snooty like that." At this point, I'm saying anything and everything he wants to hear. He even starts crying about how his mother never loved him, and telling me very deep, dark things about what his mother had said to him and how she treated him. After he finally calms down once more, he gets up and goes to the kitchen to fix us some drinks. Now, if you're anyone with a brain, you're thinking, absolutely not, which was my exact thought at that moment. I decline his multiple offers for a drink. He asks if instead of alcohol I wanted water, and of course, I declined that too, feigning that I wasn't thirsty. I stayed at his apartment until about 1 a.m., because I was sitting next to him, terrified to 1. Ask him to take me home, 2. Say I'd walk home, 3. Figure out how to get an Uber. I had been trying to download Uber on my phone, without him noticing, but then it asked for card information, and that was too hard to do without getting his attention. So around 1 a.m., I yawn very loudly and say, "Oh wow, it's so late. My roommate's going to be so worried about me." I laugh as if my roommate would be stupid to worry and that I hadn't been watching the clock since he'd picked me up at 9 p.m. Then I said, "I'm so tired. I should get home soon." Again, I was super scared he would freak out, but this time he didn't explode. He just looked at the clock and said, "Yeah, it was late." But I was not taking any chances, so I said, "I have a great idea. If I get to bed soon, I'd love to have breakfast with you on campus." I was hoping my offer convinced him that I was intending to see him again. And it did make him seem very happy at the prospect of it. So he jumped up and walked me out the door of the house and to his car. The drive back was excruciatingly long. The ride was completely silent. Neither of us spoke. It was only a 10-minute drive, but I could have sworn he slowed down every time we got to a particularly dark area or underpass. Dee dropped me off, and I smiled and made a good show of being tired yet excited to see him tomorrow. He offered multiple times to walk me to my door, but I declined every time and said I didn't want to bother him and I'd see him tomorrow. I walked myself to the building, and the moment I got around the corner, I sprinted so fast up the stairs and to my door before he could change his mind and follow me to where I lived. When I got in my dorm room, I genuinely felt like I'd just escaped a serial killer. Even now, writing it makes my heart race a bit. I never met up with him, but he begged me for multiple days afterward to meet up with him again. He even asked to pay me $20 an hour to sit near me in the library. I declined, obviously, and only ever saw him once after at the gym on campus. He didn't see me, and I left immediately. I've thought about Dee occasionally since the date and wondered if all those girls he had one-night stands with had the same experience I did. I still sometimes wonder how many girls there were after me. So, Dee, let's not meet again.
Dear listeners, if you enjoyed tonight's spine-tingling tales, be sure to click the like and subscribe button for more horror content. As always, pleasant screams.